The CW Twin Cities presents See What's Now, your entertainment news source.
Hey everybody, Jon Foss with CW Twin Cities, and today I'm extremely excited because we're talking to the president of Focus Features, Jim Burke. Thanks for being here.
You bet, John. Nice to be here.
And we're talking about A Monster Calls, your new film. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a beautiful movie that we at Focus are very, very proud of. And you know, when I think about A Monster Calls, I think this is a movie that you can see, you know, when you're 15 years old and love it, and then see it when you're 35, 20 years later, and still love it, but for a different reason. It's a sort of really emotional, beautiful, creatively explosive film.
Yeah, the trailer looks great. I mean, just the visuals themselves, from what I've seen, are off the charts.
Yeah, it's an amazingly visual picture, but also it's deeply soulful and emotional.
And I know at Focus Features, you guys have a high standard when it comes to artistic value.
We do, yeah.
And what was it about this film that stuck out as something that was good enough to be a part of Focus Features?
The filmmaker is a person that we're really, really big admirers of, Juan Antonio Bayona. And he's a Spanish auteur, and then when you read the book and then later the script, you just can't say no. It's such a good story with such good characters, yeah.
I read when Bill Pohlad, the executive producer, read the script, he was crying and he thought that had never happened, so he thought that this was something that you guys should probably do.
Yeah, I cry a little bit more than Bill does, but I cried too. And I cry every time I see the movie, yeah. But it isn't a movie that you should stay away from because it makes you cry. It's a movie that you should lean into because it touches you in such a way.
And it touches an issue that everybody's gonna have to deal with at some point,
Possibly.
if they haven't already. So.
Yeah, that's right.
And looking at your resume, one thing I've noticed is that you have films like this and like The Descendants that do focus on death and hitting these hard, serious issues. But then you also have films like Kingpin and Cedar Rapids on your resume that are comedies. What is it about? I mean, it just seems like you have a very diverse resume. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, you know, like life is filled with all sorts of twists and turns, and so are my personal enjoyments. I love to laugh, and even you take The Descendants, there's funny parts of The Descendants. I wouldn't say it focuses on death. And both of these movies they focus on life, actually, and sort of more life-affirming. And what I enjoy in a film is a movie that can take you through all of the emotions that one experiences in one's life, and all in the same film. And that's not very common anymore. And so, yeah, those are my kind of films, and those are probably Focus kind of pictures, yeah.
And for this film in particular, the main actor is a child actor.
That's right.
What's it like? What are is it more difficult to have a lead actor be a child, or what are the pros and cons of that?
So yes and no. The more difficult part is they are typically unknown to us when we're casting. Everybody knows who Brad Pitt is or Liam Neeson, but who's 12? And by the time, when you're watching a movie with a 12-year-old actor, by the time you see it, that kid's 14, and he's not 12 anymore, and there's a big difference in that sort of age group. So you have to do like they used to do in the olden days, have casting calls. And in this case, there was a casting call, and more than 1,000 kids auditioned, and he was the right one. But also, in my opinion, a young child actor is more authentic. You know, they're their authentic self, because they haven't had all the trainings and tips and things like that. So unless they come out of, no offense to the Disney Channel type of environment, they can be their real selves. And that's what we look for in our sorts of films.
And one thing that I thought that was interesting about this story in particular is the book, which won one of the most prestigious awards in the UK for both its writing and for its illustration, which was the first time in over 50 years for that award. That book was actually written by another author, and she unfortunately passed away. And then the author, I believe it, Patrick Ness. Yeah, he took over, which was a very interesting thing. And then now it's a film. How did it come to your table? How did you find out about this?
So the book was started and the characters were outlined, the basic story structure, and you know, maybe a chapter or two. And unfortunately, she passed away. And so the editor of the publishing house contacted Patrick and said, "Look, we think we have something great here. Is there any way you would consider finishing it?" And he did. And so it's oftentimes you don't have I've never heard of that kind of collaboration. And then it goes on to win all these awards, and then Patrick Ness, adapted it into a screenplay. And he worked with Bayona, the director, who is a very visual director, and you will see, if you haven't seen the movie, you will see in this movie it's stunningly visual.
And the fact that that the original author adapted it to a screenplay in itself is very rare, is that right?
It's uncommon. Yeah, it happens, but it's uncommon. It doesn't normally happen successfully, I'll tell you that, because they become so attached to when you have a book, we're going on very long, but when you have a book, you know, you couldn't, you know, adapt the whole book. It's just too long, so you have to sort of surgically remove parts, and so, but authors can get attached to their material. Yeah.
So another thing about Patrick Ness is when he was working with adapting it to a screenplay, he had some certain things that he didn't want to lose when it became a film, and that's something I think Focus Features can do that other production companies maybe can't, is that he wanted to keep the hard-hitting realities of life in the film that maybe some other companies were maybe saying we should soften this so that we can hit the children more and have it more of a family movie, but you guys wanted to keep that. Why is that important?
Well, you know, we are in service of the film, right? I believe if you make a great film, then audiences will come to see it. If you try to predict what an audience wants, by the time you make the movie, they have changed. So you need to be in service of the film and making something great and making something that'll last.
And one of the main stars of the film is the monster, and the monster is, of course, computer generated, but
not completely, but yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that when you guys shot it, you guys had a replica made, and it sounds like it was life size. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did you guys pull that off?
Yeah, so that's what the monster was. He was a real sort of man-made, not real, but man-made monster, not computer generated. Certainly the digital effects team or visual effects team augmented that, but there were many scenes in the filming of the movie where the actors who were talking with this monster were talking right to the monster. Or a replica of it. Yeah, instead of, in movie making, sometimes you're talking to a tennis ball or something like that, but that wasn't the case here.
Okay. And you're from Minnesota.
I am.
And I think it gives everybody here hope that you come from Minnesota and now you're at the top of the game, working with the most successful people in the industry. What does the Minnesota film market mean to you, and where do you see it going in the future?
Well, I mean, you need to sort of, anybody who wants to be a filmmaker and is from Minnesota or from wherever they're from, they need to sort of discover their own voice and then commit to it despite all the temptations out there to cash a big check or things like that. That's my point of view. And so, like I said earlier, you need to, when making a film, be in service of the film. And try your hardest to make a great film. It's one of the hardest things you can ever do is to make a movie. And it's even harder to make it great. So when we make, like A Monster Calls, a great movie, I want to celebrate it, and I want to tell everybody about it, that they should go see it, because these are the pictures that need to be supported. Yeah, I think so.
All right, well, Jim, thanks for being here.
Nice
Appreciate
to meet
it.
you. Thank you very
in
much.
Twin Cities, check out A Monster Calls in theaters right now.